What is up, my Lorcana goons? Welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. My name is Kevin, and today we have a tournament report from one of the first tournaments happening in Into the Inklands format. This was the Battle Bear constructed tournament that consisted of more than 100 players, and we're gonna check out the top 8 deck lists for you so we can finally check out what Into the Inklands meta is all about. Before we get into it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content so you can keep up with all things Lorcana and be part of the Goon Squad community. We also have a Discord link below if you'd like to join. But let's get on into this because I really want to see what the best decks of Into the Inklands format are. So this was a 100+ person tournament. They did say that intentional draws were not allowed, so they had to play things out, and we have a first place, a second place, and then the rest of top 8 to go over. And by golly, it is so nice to see that it's not just a bunch of Ruby Amethyst. This first place win is gonna go to Artifacts. This is a German event, so it's kind of hard to get the English information, but thank you guys for sharing this online, and you guys can find the information. All these deck lists are going to be in the link below as well. And by the way, I really hope you guys have had an awesome launch weekend for Into the Inklands. I know I have, because look, I pulled a Jafar. I pulled an enchanted Jafar, and that was really cool. I hope you guys have had some awesome pulls as well. But let's get on into this top 8 because I know that's over here. We have the first place Amethyst Emerald deck profile right here. This is consisting of 2 Chernobog's followers. We also have cards like Rafiki, cards like Cursed Merfolk. We're seeing Snake in here, Flynn Rider. We have the new 2-drop Ursula that you can use to snipe out of your hand. We also playing foxes, we're playing crabs, we're playing goats and rabbits. I mean, we knew goats and rabbits were gonna be good still in the meta, you know what I mean? We're also playing the new legendary Ursula. This is the 3-drop Ursula that's gonna let you sing songs twice. Then we have Tinkerbell, most helpful, 1 copy of Yzma. We got 2 genies on the job, 4 friends on the other side, and 4 Mother Knows Best. And to top it off, a little bit of location action. We're playing 4 of the Queen's Castle to round this deck off. This is a tempo based deck as it is labeled right here. Ideally, what you want to do with this deck obviously is play a 1-drop character on turn 1, a 2-drop character on turn 2, and then keep going and so on for turns 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So, you know, putting cards on the board like Rafiki and Cursed Merfolk in the very beginning of the game are going to get you some free lore, and obviously you can bounce those back with the Snake following up, or you can play Flynn Rider. But I think one of the better plays is obviously playing the Ursula on turn 2. This card's gonna let you look at your opponent's hand, which gives you information. Then you can discard a song from the opponent's hand, which is kind of crazy too, you know what I mean? So you get a lot of value with that card. Like I said, getting information from the opponent's hand is really important, but getting rid of a card like Be Prepared, Whole New World is also just as important. And let's talk about the Madam Mim package, shall we? Because I didn't expect this to leave at all in any way, shape, or form this format. Obviously, these cards are good. The Foxes seems like a staple in most Amethyst engines nowadays. We have Crabs, which are going to give you a lot more value in cards of Rafiki, even cards like Flint Rider, stuff that your opponent maybe thought wasn't going to be used for challenging, and you can play a Crab after and get more value out of that. I do want to mention, I'm so glad to see people playing 4 Kit the Cloud Kicker. This is the 3-drop Emerald card. It has a 2/2 stat line, but has an ability that says you can play this card, then target a character with 2 strength or less on the board and bounce it back to the hand. So it is only an opposing character, so you can't use this on like your rabbit or something, but it's still really good tempo. If you're playing like on turn, if you're going first and your opponent has like a turn 2 play and you have this on turn 3, you're gonna be able to bounce that turn 2 card back to the hand, which is pretty powerful. I also want to go over the synergy that the Ursula, Deceiver of All, has in this deck. Basically, you have 4 friends on the other side and 4 Mother Knows Best to be able to utilize this. Obviously, if you use friends on the other side to sing this Ursula, you'll draw 4 cards instead of 2, but one of the cool interactions is using Mother Knows Best with this card, which will let you bounce 2 cards instead of 1. Now, one of the cool things about this deck is you can use Mother Knows Best on your own goat, meaning you'll gain the lore by bouncing your own goat back. But if you do that with the Ursula, you can bounce your goat and then bounce an opposing character, or if you just need to, you can bounce 2 characters from the opposing side of the board, which is honestly really good tempo, especially in a tempo based deck. If you can ensure that your opponent doesn't have any characters on board, you're going to be able to maximize on the value of your characters. Most of them might even stay on the board from turn 1 all the way till the end of the game, so that's really cool to see. And of course, we're playing Rabbits. Rabbits just the best card in Amethyst, my goons. I love Rabbits. I think this card is so forgiving. You can kind of misplay throughout the day depending on the deck you're playing, and when you start playing Rabbits, it just refills your hand. We have some evasive action with that Tinkerbell, like I said, and the 1 Yzma is probably in there because there's not a lot of removal in this color combination. There's almost no removal in this color combination, so Yzma is going to actually fill that slot to be able to get rid of some sticky cards, some problematic cards, maybe some bodyguards, maybe some big evasive characters that you can't out. Yzma's gonna get them out of the way. And giving your opponent a draw 2 almost doesn't matter if you've been playing characters from 1 through 5 and you're questing with all these characters, the goats, the foxes, you know, you're probably gonna be at like 10 to 12 lore, even higher by the time you get to that turn 6. So if you give your opponent 2 draws, it doesn't matter because you're gonna start questing for game within the next 2 turns anyways. And then Genie is another tempo based card, probably gonna get you to finish the game by bouncing more characters to the opponent's hand. And I do want to go over the strength that the new location cards have, especially some of the cards like the Queen's Castle. This card does not lose to Maui. You can play this card on turn 4 and then move your characters on turn 5. Even later on in the game on turns 5, 6, and 7, you can play it and just move characters automatically. The card draws you cards depending on how many characters you have on the location, so it'll replace itself, it'll give you pluses. And if your opponent is already struggling with getting rid of your characters because you keep bouncing them to their hand, they're gonna have a hard time getting rid of the location too. You know, I get the feeling rush characters like Maui are gonna become very popular this format because especially decks like this, they're not gonna let you keep characters on the board that are gonna let you even challenge the location. So really awesome deck. I'm so happy to not see Ruby Amethyst in first place, but we do have Ruby Amethyst in second place right here. This is an updated Ruby Amethyst list by Kenbu. You're gonna revolutionize the meta. I know people are gonna start net decking this, and that's what we're here for. We're here so you can net deck these lists. Now, this list looking pretty similar to the last Ruby Amethyst list we were seeing in the Rise of the Floodborn format, with a little bit of changes. So we do have 7 1-drops, the 4 Olafs, 3 minis. We are still playing Cuscos and Snakes, as well as the Foxes, the Crabs, the Minnie Mouse Surfers, the Goats, and the Rabbits. All of that pretty standard, you know what I mean? There's like the best cards in Ruby Amethyst. I am a little surprised to see the Minnie Mouse here, but now that I'm seeing Emerald in the meta, I think you have to play Minnie Mouse and Crab still because they're gonna have some evasive characters that you need to out still. And I'm pretty sure other Ruby Amethyst players are still playing the Minnie Mouse, so you have to respect that. But on to some of these new cards that I really like seeing, like the Prince Eric Ruby version. Now, a lot of people don't think this card is good. I think this card is amazing. So obviously on turn 4, when you play him, you want to be able to have a singleable character that's a 2-drop or higher, so you can play Teeth and Ambitions that same turn. Meaning you'll Teeth and Ambitions, sing one of your other characters, you'll pop your Eric, and you can pop any card on the opposing board, which is very powerful. A lot of people are playing cards like Chernobog right now, and Chernobog is very threatening, but if they quest with that Chernobog, you just run your Eric into it and it clears any single character on the board. It is so good. It's like a Dragon Fire, but with a body, but also with that extra ability to be able to quest for 2. It's so much value. I'm telling you, the Prince Eric Ruby card gets so much value. Now let's talk about the fact that they're playing Jimbo Hawkins. This is pretty cool because we have 6 locations to go along with Jim Hawkins. We have the Queen's Castle, like I just mentioned. It's a card that'll get you a lot of value. And then we also have the RLS Legacy, sticking to the thematic movie version of whatever movie Jimbo Hawkins is from. It's either Atlantis or it's either Treasure Planet. I think it's Treasure Planet, right? Yeah, it's probably Treasure Planet. I'm sorry. I still haven't seen the movies. I should have seen them before Inklands came out. I know I'm a bad Lorcana goon, but I will watch it this week, I promise. More Ruby removal in this format with Prince Eric, but with also the Madame Medusa. Madame Medusa is a card that we're seeing people play over Lady Tremaine right now, because before, if you dropped Lady Tremaine or on turn 5, the opponent would usually maybe play some 1-drop characters, some extra Minnie Mouses or something that you're not really worried about. So it made it kind of hard to resolve your Lady Tremaine correctly. You know, good players are going to play around that, but now we have Madame Medusa, which is going to be able to banish an opposing character with 3 strength or less. And there's so many characters that are played in Lorcana right now with 3 strength or less, including Genie, Mufasa. There's also all the snakes and the Mim cards, except for the Fox, really. A lot of cards in general fit this criteria. So the Madame Medusa is going to have a lot of potential in your Ruby decks. Whether you're playing Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Steel, whatever you're playing, I think Madame Medusa goes a long way this format. And like I mentioned before, RLS Legacy, Queen's Castle, they're cards that you play now instead of Spellbook. You don't need to play Spellbook anymore because these cards generate you that passive lore. And when you're playing stuff like Jimbo Hawkins, you're able to play these for free, which is crazy. Imagine playing a Spellbook for free last format and then not having to pay a single ink to generate lore from that Spellbook. That is where we're going with Lorcana. That is how strong some of these locations are. I think if you didn't get your Jim Hawkins this weekend when they were as low as $15, they're gonna start shooting up in price because it is a very powerful card. The Ruby Amethyst, doing what Ruby Amethyst does best, generating generating a lot of pressure in the early game, finishing the game off with some goats, playing cards like Friends on the Other Side and Rabbits to make sure you always have cards to play. And we are only playing 3 Be Prepared in this list, not 4 anymore. It's almost like maybe you don't need 4 because you actually have a decent amount of consistent removal now with Prince Eric, Madame Medusa, and honestly, people are playing Bare Necessities, they're playing that Ursula card like we mentioned, so maybe you don't want to see 4 Be Prepared in your hand, because, or even multiples, because they're always going to hit it out of your hand anyways, you know what I mean? But Ruby Amethyst taking a solid second place in this tournament. But in top 8, there's another Ruby Amethyst, this one piloted by Nicholas Tellenden. Shout out you for getting top 8 with Ruby Amethyst. A little bit different version in this one. This one's not playing too many new cards. We are seeing the same cards like Minnie, Snake. We're still seeing the Amethyst Petting Zoo package with the goats, the foxes and all that, but we are seeing LeFou in this version, which is kind of nice. I like LeFou personally. I think it's great with Maui because you can challenge twice and Maui's going to be able to clear almost any location, but it will clear every location if you have LeFou in combination with it, right? We're also playing 1 copy of Eric in this one, 3 Madame Medusa, no Tremaine, so it looks like we're leaving Tremaine in the past, and we're playing 3 copies of Elsa, so some more later game stuff. And there's 1 copy of the Peter Pan. This Peter Pan character, kind of interesting, Pirate's Bane. He's gonna actually have a good matchup against any other pirate deck by basically whenever he challenges a pirate, he takes no damage, but he is an evasive character. He is a 6/4/5 that quests for 2, so it is going to be some extra pressure in case you need that evasive support in the deck, because you are playing the Minnie Mouse Surfers as well. You know, you already have some evasive pressure, and this is going to out the opposing evasive characters pretty easily because it has some pretty good stats. This one's also playing Dragonfire, and we're still playing 4 copies of the Queen's Castle location, where we don't even have to play Jim Hawkins, as you can clearly see. Just playing the Queen's Castle at 4 seems pretty decent in my opinion, because again, it's like a spell book, you can ink it, and on turn 4, you're probably playing a rabbit, and you probably already have certain cards on the field, like maybe a LeFou, or Crab, or Minnie Mouse. So on turn 5, all you have to do is play the castle, and the castle only has a move cost of 1. So you're able to move at least 1 character by turn 5 there. And if they don't clear that location by turn 5, especially when there's no outs to it aside from Maui and the Rise of the Titans card, they're gonna end up drawing 1 card from that, and then next turn if they move more characters to it, they start drawing way too many cards, and it generates a lot of value. If you thought Ruby Amethyst was drawing cards fast last format, it's gonna get even faster this format. But congrats to you on this top 8 Ruby Amethyst list, but we're tired of Ruby Amethyst. Let's get on to some new goo. Shout out Nomlix for providing us with this top 8 Amethyst Steel deck profile. As we all knew, Jafar plus Whole New World is a good combo, and this player has proven that by getting top 8 at this 100+ player tournament. Let's take a look at this deck list. We have the Robin Hood goons, we got Blue Fairy, we got the 2 Inkable Jafar, there's Crabs, there's Tinkerbell Tacticians, we got Rabbits, we have the 4-drop Jafar, which is going to add a lot of pressure. If you have the 4-drop Jafar on the board, your opponent probably does not want to quest, which is, you know, that's a good thing. We're also playing for the Sad Beast, because obviously Sad Beast is good. Even 4 of the new legendary Robin Hood. New Robin Hood Champion of Sherwin. This Robin Hood is going to also add pressure. If it clears a character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore, which might even end the game sometimes. If for whatever reason your opponent clears it in a challenge, you draw a card, so that's some extra draw power, and it replaces itself. And if you already have the Jafar exerted, then you're going to be able to gain lore when that happens. We're playing 3 copies of Yzma, because in a deck like this, you can use Yzma offensively and defensively. You can shuffle the opposing character into the deck and give your opponent some card value. It doesn't matter, because if you are playing a tempo game that game, then you're going to be able to keep that pressure on the board. But because Jafar is going to get you lore whenever you draw cards, if you use Yzma on your own cards, you're going to trigger your Jafar again. So that's awesome to see. We're also playing 4 of the Giant Tinkerbell, 4 of the Jafar Striking Illusionist, which is probably the best card in Amethyst, this type of Amethyst deck anyways right now. Like I said before, this card's going to have evasive. This card's going to be a 4/5 body. Every time you draw, you gain lore, and we're playing more than enough Jafar targets to make this possible. There's also some removal in this deck, and a lot of times we want to play removal for the opposing steel matchups, especially when everybody has been hyped on Emerald Steel and Amber Steel Song Steel. So we are playing Fire the Cannons. We're playing Strength of a Raging Fire, both of those at 2. And then he's playing 4, and then along came Zeus, which is the new uninkable song that lets you deal 5 damage to either a location or a character. So that is some location pressure. I noticed we're not playing Rise of the Titans because maybe it wasn't the best meta call to play that card, because you don't know how many locations you're going to run into. This deck is also not playing any locations itself, so in the mirror match that card would be kind of dead. And then to finish it off, there's 4 Whole New World and 3 Grab Your Swords, because we need Grab Your Sword still in this meta, you know what I mean? It's an AoE, it's a card that deals damage to every other character on the opposing side of the board, so that's kind of nice. And I like this deck because there's a lot more draw power than just Friends on the Other Side and Rabbits. I like the Blue Fairy edition because the card has evasive, and you're going to be able to start drawing cards every time you shift or drop a Floatborn character, which is kind of crazy in a deck that already gets you lore whenever you draw a card, you know what I mean? I imagine that when you're playing this deck, you probably want to always keep the Jafar in your hand if you mulligan into it, or if you have a smaller version of Jafar, you probably want to aggressively mulligan into the new Jafar. But I don't think you necessarily have to mulligan into the Whole New World every time. There's more than enough draw power in this deck, making it so that even if you don't draw Whole New World with your Jafar, you're going to probably still gain a lot of momentum in the early game, and as the game progresses, that Jafar has evasive, so if they don't have any outs to it, they're going to have a hard time watching you draw cards and gain lore every time. And that's probably why we're seeing other evasive characters in the meta like that Peter Pan Pirate's Bane, because that card has a pretty good matchup against the Jafar, especially if you're playing crabs. Our next list is going to be a Ruby Amber list, so shout out to this player for getting top 8 in a 100 plus tournament with Ruby Amber Mufasa. So this deck is playing a few non-characters, but mostly characters. We have the new Pluto 1-drop. We have Stitch New Dog. We have the new Piglet, Pooh Pirate Captain. We're playing 2 copies of Snow White, 4 copies of Simba and LeFou and Mother Gothel. Ooh, I like the new addition to the Stitch with Rush. Stitch Little Rocket is what it's called. I like the new addition of Stitch Little Rocket in this deck. We're playing 3 of them. Even though it is uninkable, this card is great because it adds a lot of pressure. It's going to be able to challenge pretty much any character in the early game and clear it, especially if your opponent's playing sticky cards like Snake and Smee. This card's going to be able to challenge them and, you know, clear it. We're also playing this Minnie Mouse Surfer. We're playing Lucky, which is very interesting. Lucky's not my favorite card, but a lot of people seem to be enjoying this card. It's 4-drop uninkable. Basically says you exert it, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and put a 2 cost or lower into your hand. And it has another ability though that says whenever this character quests, if you have 4 or more characters in play, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. Now, if you play this deck, you guys let me know in the comments, does that second effect go off very often to where all your characters gain +1 lore? I feel like in a tempo deck like this as well, where you're playing characters constantly from 1 through 5, there is a possibility that you will have 4 characters by that time, so maybe that does end the game really quickly, you know what I mean? And we're also playing 4 Rapunzel because Rapunzel's the best Amber card in the game. We have 2 Maui and 4 Pedrita. Pedrita is a new legendary Dao card. This card is a 6-ink uninkable Devoted Mother. This card is going to basically let you get some free value when you play it. When you play the character, or when she quests, you get a character of 2 cost or less from your discard for free to the field. So it is an uninkable, so I am surprised to see 4 of these in here, but seems like a pretty decent card regardless, you know what I mean? When you play it, it gets that +1 value, which is kind of nice. And if it stays on the board, you're going to be able to do it multiple times. And we're playing more than enough 1 and 2 drops in this deck. The whole first row is all targetable characters, which is nice to see. Obviously, we're playing the Rockstar Stitch because we're playing the new Dog Stitch. And then we're also playing 2 copies of the Bodyguard Pluto. This is the big boy Pluto that heals himself for 3 every time you start your turn. And to finish it off, some non-character cards to make sure that we can, you know, also combat the opposing meta matchups. We have 4 copies of Bare Necessities to make sure our opponent cannot use Whole New World and Be Prepared. We also have 3 copies of Teeth and Ambitions, which is really nice because this card is going to let you trigger your Rapunzel as well in case you don't draw Mother Gothel as a combo. But in general, it's going to deal 2 damage to some problematic characters, and then 2 Sumerian Talismans, some more extra draw power in this deck, because sometimes this deck did feel like you were relying heavily on Rapunzel for your draw power, but now you can play Sumerian Talisman, and on your turn, when you challenge characters and your characters get banished, you draw some cards, which is kind of nice. So after a few turns of you utilizing this, you'll be able to replace itself and then even generate some extra value. But that's not the only Mufasa deck we have in top 8. No. We have a green Mufasa deck as well that is in top 8, playing a similar Amber package of Pluto, Stitch New Dogs, the Piglet Pirate Captain, but this version is playing Doc. We're also seeing Hades. The new Kita Legendary is in this version. So the new Kita Legendary, we're not seeing the 1-drop Kita to shift into it because it probably just doesn't seem necessary because it is just a Kita Goons. It's just a 1/2/2, and you know, maybe it won't survive that long. But playing this on turn 5 is pretty decent. Getting it off of Mufasa is pretty decent as well. If you don't know what it does, it lowers the strength of all the characters on the board by 3, which is kind of nice. Basically meaning the opposing characters will not be able to challenge your characters anymore unless they play something with Rush, right? Because they're usually going to have less than 3 strength already, or it's not going to be enough to be able to clear your willpower on your characters. Obviously, Mufasa is in this deck, but we're also playing 4 Ray for that evasive pressure, the 4 Genie Genies for that tempo pressure, Rockstar Stitch. We're playing 2 big Pluto as we've seen. So the Amber package looking very, very similar in both of these Mufasa decks, but this one's playing 2 copies of Chernabog. What do you guys think of Chernabog in the meta? I've seen people say the card's not good. I've seen people say the card is really good. In my opinion, I feel like 2 is like a good number because you want to see it, but you probably don't want to see Chernabog back to back because every time you play Chernabog, all your characters go back into the deck, so it makes it harder to play a second Chernabog. But if you've been playing cards from, like I said, turns 1 through turn 5 or whatever, by like turn 6, if your opponent's been clearing your characters, this Chernabog is going to be like a 4 to 6 cost character, and you'll be able to play a 9/9 body that quests for 3 really early on into the game, which might secure you the bag. But as we can see, Mufasa seeing a lot of meta play. We're also seeing Pongo in this list, the Determined Father. Now this Pongo comes in the starter deck, which is cool. This Pongo is a 3 ink inkable character. Once per turn, you can pay 2 ink, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, you put it to your hand. Otherwise, you put it to the bottom of the deck. And in this deck, as you can see, all of our cards are character cards. So this deck is not going to lose out any value to when your opponent uses Bare Necessities. If they play the Ursula on you, they're going to look at your hand, but they're never going to snipe any cards because you only play characters. Now, if you guys watched our latest video on like the top 6 decks you're gonna see starting new format, this is one of the lists that we went over, and I like this deck because it plays around Bare Necessities and cards like that already. And if your opponent's playing a Whole New World, they're gonna give you Chernabog fuel. Every time they use Whole New World, your Chernabog is gonna be way easier to play, which is kind of nice. So if you're playing a Whole New World deck and you start running into these Mufasa decks, take that into consideration. We also have the Tinkerbell Most Helpful, which gives your characters evasive. As we can see, a lot of people are starting to play evasive characters now, like the Jafar, the Genies, or the Peter Pan characters. If you have Tinkerbell Most Helpful in your deck, all your characters become possible threats to those characters, because now you can give one of your strong characters evasive. You can give your Chernabog evasive and just clear any evasive character for free because Chernabog has such a big body. Next, we have an Amber Steel Song, because of course Amber Steel Song is going to be in this top 8, right? So this list looking very similar to the Floodborn lists that we were seeing, playing Cinderella, Ballroom Sensation, New Dog, the Queen Goons. We're also playing Simba, Knight in Training Cindy, for Ariel, because Ariel is just good every single format. I think Ariel's amazing every single format. 1 copy of Benjo, 1 copy of Hades, and then we have 3 Queen Commanding Presence, 4 Rockstar Stitch, and 4 Cinderella Stout-Hearted. Now all these cards seem like they're from last format, you know, so it's a pretty standard list. But we are going to get into some spice here. We have the 2 Chernabog in this list, so why not? You know what I mean? You're already playing Whole New World. You're already probably more than likely ditching characters or shifting your characters, and anytime they get anytime they get banished, they're going to go into your discard pile, adding to your Chernabog fuel. We're also playing no flutes in this list. As you can see, you don't need flute right now, I guess, because maybe it's too slow or something. I don't know. But we are playing a bunch of songs like Bare Necessities, Be Our Guest, Strength of a Raging Fire. We're playing Let the Storm Rage On. We're also playing the 4 Whole New Worlds and the 4 Grab Your Swords because it's mandatory, I feel. And of course, we're playing 3 copies of the new song, And Then Along Came Zeus. Of course, you want to deal 5 damage to an opposing location or character, and in a deck like Amber Steel Song, it's going to be pretty easy to sing that song in my opinion. Amber Steel Song clearly has its place in the meta this time around. I wonder if we're going to start seeing flutes come into play. I wonder if maybe Lantern's not the move anymore. Is that card outpaced? Let me know what you think in the comments of this list, because this list looks pretty similar to last format, but we are adding those new cards, like I mentioned, to add some extra pressure, especially like Bare Necessities. And if you see this off Ariel and use it early game, you get information from the opponent's hand, and if you're terrified of Be Prepared, this might hit that Be Prepared off of them, which is kind of nice. But last and not least, we have another top 8 list by Dan W15. This is a Emerald Amethyst tempo list. Shout out you for getting top 8 as well. This list looking kind of similar to the first list we went over, but just a little bit different. Some extra spice that I want to go over. We are playing 2 of the 1-drop Maleficent that'll quest for 2, 4 Cursed Merfolk. I had people telling me in that last video where I ranked the cards that Cursed Merfolk wasn't good. Cursed Merfolk is very good. It's a very good card. It adds a lot of pressure. We have 4 Ursula Deceiver. This is the one that lets you look at your opponent's hand. Then we have 4 Maleficent for some draw power, the rabbits, the goats, the petting zoo. We have the petting zoo package, obviously, the Mim petting zoo package right here. But we are playing Yzma, like I said before, to make sure we can shuffle some cards in, maybe execute some extra draw power, you know, getting some tempo. But we are playing some interesting cards in this list, like Bounce. This Bounce card is very interesting. It's going to let you bounce a character from your field to the hand and an opposing side. And there's a bunch of songs that are singable in this package actually, because we are playing Strike a Good Match. We're playing Friends on the other side and Mother Knows Best. And if you're trying to play a deck that needs to see cards like Goat when you need to see it, or just these new locations like the Queen's Castle, you're going to be able to use Strike a Good Match, sing it twice, draw 4 cards, discard some extra cards to make sure you have the right combo pieces in your hand. Amethyst Emerald, 2 Amethyst Emeralds in this top 8. Very interesting to see. I love to see, crazy how there's no Emerald Steel in this top 8, right? I thought the Emerald Steel loop was the best deck. I thought that was gonna be the goo. What happened, guys? You guys tell me, you guys let me know if you think Emerald Steel, this was a fluke. Is that deck still gonna be competitive in the meta? It's looking like Emerald Amethyst is making its place in the meta now. This is a very cool color combination. Doesn't play much removal, but it doesn't seem like that matters. All that matters in Lorcana is getting to 21st in your opponent. But that is gonna be all going over the Battle Bear top 8 deck list. Like I mentioned, there is a 101 player tournament. The top cut prizing received a decent amount of packs for first place. I believe it was 36 plus packs for first, 24 packs for second place, and then third and fourth got 16 packs, and 5th through 8 got 8 packs. So a lot of people entered this tournament. It was a German tournament, so shout out to these tournament organizers. Let me know what you think of these lists below. I'm excited to see where this meta is going, because finally we have a diverse meta where it's not just 50% Ruby Amethyst. So I'm personally going to try some of these lists on Pixelborn, and I can't wait to see what other lists come out from any more tournaments that happen this weekend. So, but until then, remember to stay tuned to Lorcana Goons. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content and you need some tournament reports, and we will see you goons next time.